How's everybody doing today? Welcome to another episode of Amy Howard at Home's Finished Friday. Today we are going to do some Venetian plaster, traditional Venetian plaster through a stencil, and then Venetian plaster wall art. So hopefully we got some eyeballs here. My name is Leonella Cook, and I am a content creator for Amy Howard and Home. My business is sandpaper and wax design. I'm so happy to join you here today from sunny and hot South Florida. So I hope everyone's doing really well. We have some eyes. Hey guys, so glad you can join me. Today's really fun. I've been wanting to do this for a while, and I had a bathroom in my office that needed some remodeling, and I can't wait to share with you guys what I've done. But for today we're going to go and talk about what I've done with the walls. It's a work bathroom, so it was pretty beat up from my predecessors, and it needed, honestly, if it was my house, I would have done some new drywall. But it's a commercial property that I use for my business, so I do not want to put a ton of money into it because you don't get it back. So here we are. First, we're going to talk about the wall paint. This wall paint is Manor Born. You can see behind me. The paint color is Boggle Buddies. And so I picked that color because I wanted a really pretty contrast with this Venetian plaster. And I'm going to show you guys. Here's the traditional. I did two different kinds. So here's that traditional, just regular plaster mixed, a little thicker than normal, and then put through a Mylar, just like that. And we'll talk about that and how to mix that. And then I did a little bit of a hybrid and I'll show you. Ready? I'm going to turn the lights out so you guys can see this. How cool. Doing with, now this is still Venetian plaster, but as you can see, it's a little bit different. I've added two different ingredients to it, played around with some recipes. And what I love is there is no cracking, and it is also very easy to sculpt with the correct tools. So I am going to turn you around so you can take a look at, and turn the lights back on. Oh, sorry. So you can see what I was working with and the tools that you'll need to get started. Tiny space. So, and a bathroom, I feel like all women need a beautiful bathroom, because where do we go to hide from our spouses, our children, whomever, our neighbor? We go and hide in the bathroom. So let's have a beautiful space in the bathroom. Okay, so I'm going to turn you down. Look here. We have a bunch of different tools that I like to work with, and I'll tell you the ones you really do need. Some you don't really need. But what you do need is Venetian plaster, and also you need your walls to be prepped. So I did the Manor Born paint and I sprayed it. If you spray it, you will need to thin it. It is a thick paint. It's recommended, I believe, it was like a cup of water to a gallon. So it was about, still in my thin, I did about a quarter cup. No, less than a quarter, maybe like 3 tablespoons, just under a quarter. But so for just, and then you need a Mylar stencil. You can't put this through a mesh stencil. You can make your own, guys. It's so easy and it's really inexpensive. I got a huge roll of 40 feet on Amazon by, I think this one was 12 inches. I believe it's 12 inches. And then I just made my own design, my own palm tree. And then the thing is, like, draw what you see, don't draw what you know. And then think about that negative and positive space of where that plaster will go through. And I mean, these stencils are expensive. So especially the wall ones, the big ones, and they're so cheap to do. You guys can do this. Totally. Or if you're like Cricut savvy, Cricut's awesome too. So I'm not Cricut savvy. but I can draw and I can cut my own. So, all right. So moving on, for the regular Venetian plaster. So, oh yes. So prep your walls. What I really like about that, and we'll talk real quick about the paint and I'll show you what I really like about this Mannerborn. These walls are so imperfect. Now I'm going to get really close. You could see this is not a level 5 or 7 or anything, probably not even a level 3 drywall. So as you get into construction, there's levels of finishes for smart rooms and all kinds of. So, and I will not talk about science today. I'm so sorry. No science. I know you guys are disappointed, but I will behave myself. So anyway, Matterboard is really awesome. It really hid all these imperfections in on my wall. I was really impressed, especially with a matte paint. It tends to kind of exaggerate if there's a problem with your wall. And I mean, I patched these. I took off wallpaper, layers of wallpaper. I took off a handicap bar down here that if somebody's handicapped in my building, unfortunately, I don't even think you can get through here. But so yeah, I totally stripped everything, resurfaced, and that Matterborn paint just was phenomenal. I do recommend 2 coats, but really great paint, good at hiding flaws in your wall. And what was great doing this with plaster, I didn't have to repaint after I cleaned out my edges on the plaster. It really cleaned up really nicely. So I really recommend that Matterborn. So now we're moving on. I'm going to bring you down again. We are going to talk about mixing up our first batch of just regular old Venetian plaster. Now, if you guys haven't worked with this, I do recommend, if you have sensitive skin, do wear gloves and do wear a dust mask when you're mixing. I'm not going to for this because I have to talk to you. So when you are mixing Venetian plaster, you want to go ahead and have water in the bowl first. And we're just to do a small little batch. I think most of you know how to do Venetian plaster. So just a little. So that was about a half of a cup there of just water. And it's a little bit more than a 1-to-1 mix. And so you're going to want to get a measuring cup here. Or if you have, I'm just using this because I have a small space. And we are going to mix. We'll start with less and then increase as you go. And we're looking for that consistency to put it through that Mylar stencil, not to slop all down the wall. So you want a little bit thicker than you would normally make it. So we're adding that in. Let it soak in. Again, I won't talk about science or molecules. I won't behave myself. Let that soak in. Okay. And then we are going to mix it up really well. And by letting it kind of soak, it makes it mixing a little bit easier. And as you can see, it's still really watery, and that's just not what we're looking for. So we will need a bit thicker consistency. And so for the traditional stuff, guys, the clumps are not great, but it's not the end of the world. For the other one I'm going to show you, you do need to get the clumps out, unfortunately. I just used my dry spoon. Okay, so we're going to add a little bit more and just kind of eyeball it here at this point, just adding little by little. If it gets too thick, add more water. Do not fear, you didn't ruin it. All right, just making sure you can see. It's still really thin. And also just, you want to let it sit after you mix it for a few minutes if you can. It will naturally thicken up a bit. But since we are live, we're going to do a little bit more. If you're impatient, you can use a mixer. If you don't like to do it by hand, that's fine too. All right. Just want to show you how to do it. And the thing is, This stuff, as long as you seal it, it will last. Unlike other plasters, like plaster of Paris, it will harden regardless. So Venetian plaster will keep its, um, as long as it's sealed up, it'll last for a while. All right, that's not bad. It's not as thick as I would like it, but it's good. And it'll thicken up as the air gets to it too. Okay, so just like that, see, could be a bit thicker. All right, so let's go to the wall. Sorry, I'm gonna make you sick. So when you do your stencil, again, I haven't finished cutting this particular one because I decided I wanted another tree. I always think 2 palm trees are really cool. And so I wanted a little one, like a cute little baby tree. And what I love that you design these yourselves, you can modify it as much as you'd like. And this is I was worried that it wasn't as thick as like the other commercial wall stencils. And this is it's actually a 4 mil, and I'm really happy with the thickness. It's plenty thick for what we're doing, so um, don't worry about it. This is super cool. And then you can just modify however you want it to be. When you put it on the wall, and you don't want to, and oh, this is really cool about Mannerborn. I used regular traditional masking tape, and it didn't even rip any of the paint off. How cool is that? Like normally, if I use like a bear or whatever, it will rip the top, it'll rip the coat off. So secure your drawing there, decide where you want it. Again, you can also do these freehand if you can draw. These are cool too. But stencils are easy. We're gonna zoom in so we can get closer. And you're gonna use, you can use a trowel, you can use a small trowel, you can use a plastic trowel because we're not burnishing these images. You can, but I'm not going to. Because eventually I want to build these up, which you can. So you're going to load your onto your trowel, and you're just going to go across. Really easy. It's so simple. It's not even funny. Okay, I'm just doing the top of the palm here so you can see it, and I'm just going to pull it off, and it's just that quick. Super easy. Don't go back and forth. You want to go keep it in one direction because you don't want it to get under, but it's still super easy to clean up. And then we're just going to pull it off so you can see how quick, super simple. And if you wanted, you could build that up. So that is that. Now we're going to move into, for my little more advanced students, because I know y'all are watching, we are going to move into some fun stuff. And it's going to take practice. I do recommend that you practice with this. I recommend start small. And have a wet rag with you if you want to wipe it off because you're not happy. So, all right. So we're moving into more of a Scaliola style Venetian plaster, and we are going to mix them up together. I'm just checking out how much water I have in here. So what I like to do, I'm actually going to get rid of some of that water. I am going to do a 1/4 cup of water. Make small batches. You don't want to make ginormous batches with this. And we are going to take hide glue, which you would use to make a traditional gesso on artwork. Animal glue, not hide glue, animal glue. And so I already have some already ready from the night before. And from that, I am going to go ahead and add, I want to get to, it's still a lot of water. I want to get to a 1/2 cup of total water by volume here. Because you don't want to make huge batches, make small batches. And then I keep it in a bath as I'm working. I keep a little burner here with water on low, or if you have a wax, like when you wax your legs, if you've ever done that craziness and you don't do it anymore, it's a perfect repurposing. So we are about a 1/2 cup of our fluid. And we're going to start with half a cup of the Venetian plaster. Always start less and gradually add more. And always adding the plaster to the wet. So here we are at almost around this. Now this is a fluid cup. I promise not to get into science, but it is not exactly accurate. You should weigh it if you can. But I can't fit a scale in here too. So we'll make do. Okay. So just go ahead and allow that to come in. Also, I do recommend let your bath cool, and let it cool to come to room temperature. Your animal glue, rabbit skin glue, because it will want to heat the plaster. So it will heat your mixture, and heat causes plaster to cure. Okay, so now we're just going to start mixing it up. And you can see it's still super watery. So now we're going to add more. So simple, so simple, so simple. And here we are adding more. And this is really important that we get all the lumps out for this. You don't want to transfer that into your sculpture. So for here, I would recommend a blender at this point to really make sure it's, unless you're okay with sitting here for a few minutes, just mixing and mixing. But we want to get a nice smooth consistency, as you can see. All right. Now, when you make traditional scagliola, it is not done like this. It is done, you know, dry, and then you add it, and then you mix it like a clay. But this, we're doing a little bit hybrid. I think it's easier. I think it's for the wall, easier to use. It's less messy. So I call it a hybrid. I don't know. I came up with this recipe. A lot of other recipes call for Elmer's glue. I promised I wouldn't get into science, so that's whatever. Won't talk about it. So we just used the rabbit skin glue. All right, so we're getting to a really good consistency, less lumpy. Really keep mixing. And I think I actually want it still a little bit thicker, so go ahead and add a little bit more, little by little. If you go over and it gets too much, add a little water, and then try to go from there. If need be, add a little more. It's like making a cake, guys. Okay, now I am gonna kind of add in something strange, and this is a joint compound. I don't like just the plaster, the Venetian plaster with the joint compound. It causes excessive cracking, and it takes away from the luminosity or luminousness of the Venetian plaster. So I feel like it kind of dumbs it down too much, but it does help with a little bit of that thickness to prevent running. So at this point, I'm going to show you again. There's my consistency. It's pretty thick. And you can even go a tiny bit thicker, but once you go a little bit thicker, we're going to start running into drying issues. So just watch your thickness. Now we're going to add in this is all natural joint compound, no VOC. So it's not your DAP or anything like that. This is a very environmentally friendly joint compound. You find it at Home Depot. So we're going to use we're going to start with one tablespoon there, maybe a little, yeah, it's 1 tablespoon. And just mixing it, really mixing it in. So the joint compound, again, it helps with maintaining some kind of structure because we're on a vertically challenged, or vertical surface. I didn't think about that. So really mixing. This is a good idea if you want a blender, hand mixer, but really just trying to get out as much of that lump as you can. You will have super strong arms. Again, make this in batches. You know, as you make it as you go, because a little bit will go a really long way. It took me about a half a bag, maybe not even. to do the wall behind me, all of it. So little by little. Okay. And I'm happy with that consistency. It's still flowing, still pretty thick. Again, I like to let things sit for a little bit. So while we do that, we're going to talk about how you're going to get ready to do your art. How are we on time? All right. We got about 5 minutes. Okay. So for this, I did not use a stencil. You can use a stencil and build it up then manually by hand. And we could do that here. I could show you how to do that over on this side. What I did was I freehand drew this in pencil and then went ahead and started adding in that texture, building it up. For the detail, it's easier to do it while it's still in the wet and not dry. And you can also, what is really cool about this stuff, I'll show you right now. The tools, I have a lot of clay formation tools, and you can use all kinds of stuff. Be creative if you don't have a set. But the sets are pretty inexpensive. You can go on Amazon, you go to Michael's, they have all kinds of clay sets. So if you wanted, you can come back after it has dried and not do it in the wet, and you can bring down the surface and carve your drawing up a little bit more if you wanted. So like if I wanted to make a little bit more indentation, if I wanted to bring down any of that, you can sand it. You could use a carving tool. Here is a sharper edge and bringing it down just like you would do an actual plaster sculpture. And what I like by using that animal glue or the rabbit skin glue, there is no cracking. So make sure you watch your ratio because if you add too much glue, it could cause cracking. But just watch your ratio, and you can carve it. So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to freehand. I'm going to teach you how to do that. Also, I have added in 3D dimensional. You can use foam board and then tack it into your art. There is wire. You could use Amy's caproni wrap too in this. Here, I'll come down so you can see a leaf. Is a lot of dimension in this leaf. I even made it so it had a pocket, and you can add little tea lights. And so when you draw your picture, I want you to think about, especially if you want to add that dimensional and adding in some depth to it, when you draw, you are going to lose all the detail. What you're really looking to do is just create that basic shape of things. There's my pencil. One sec. And you know what? I can even show you how to do it with a paintbrush. So paintbrushes are critical. Once you draw in your sketch with a pencil, you can actually start your base. If it's more detailed and your trowel is too wide or any of your tools are too wide, you can go ahead and start it using a paintbrush. If you had sketched in some grass, you can start building. Can you see that? Get down a little bit more. Where are we? I'm here. Wall. Okay. I think you can see me. All right. So if I want to draw a blade of grass in here, that's where I would like it to begin. So I'm trying to think of like the idea and the shape, how I want it to move, how the dimensions are going to be. And then you'll slowly start to build up your surface. And I'm going to use a really tiny little scraper, and you're just going to add it in. Going across. And so this tree actually took me, without the leaves included, it took me less than an hour. So you do have to work a little quick. The stuff does start to get pretty thick and start to dry, which is great because then you could use it for more shapes as you go if you want to add in more detail. And it's going to feel messy initially. It's not going to look, remember, you're going to build it up. So while you do one blade of grass here, let that start to come a little bit to a dry formation, and you can work on something else in the meantime. So let that just go. Don't worry about the edges. You can always come back and wipe down. It's so forgiving. You have a wet cloth always with you, and you can just trace. If you want to just scale it back, just pull it down. There we go. We're just going to pull it back if it was too wide for you and you didn't like that. So there's one blade. And then you just go ahead and start your next one. So easy. And now I'm going to show you how to build up. Say you did a stencil and you want to build it up, you want to give it some dimension. It's not hard. You got to practice. And the more you practice, the better you get. And look how translucent. So as you start to, what's nice is when you practice this, you can really take advantage of this being Venetian plaster because it's not like traditional plaster. It's marble dust, so you can burnish it. You could make these the grass leaves, kind of hone them to make a little bit of a shine to them, which would be really beautiful. I think it would be so pretty on this accent wall. And then, so as you go, as it starts to dry, you can start adding in texture. So now we're going to go over here and we're going to build up a surface now that's already done, and it doesn't have much dimension to it, and you can start to get the feel of it. And guys, really playing with this is really important. So I'm going to come here to the trunk. Say we wanted to add some texture, and now this is where we start adding in some serious depth. Once you get that initial base, then you can start adding. Yeah. So I had already spritzed down this, so give it a little bit of a misting. I did this before we started. By doing that, it will help the next layer really bond to the other layer. And now we're adding in depth. And here is where this is where it starts to get really fun as you start to bring your image to life here. And it's easier because you've already have the base done. So maybe even do a hybrid of these two. That would be fun too. So there we go. And you can add in with tools, adding in depth here. And we're adding in striation. So we wanted more movement instead of just being a flat dimensional. And some people like it. It's okay. You could keep it that way. Or if you want to add more texture, you can add texture here. You can start embedding things into the wall. I mean, the sky is the limit. You could really have a blast with this stuff. And so deciding. And it's so forgiving because you can always come back and wipe off what you don't like. So super easy. You want to see adding texture, adding in dimension. And then for these I used a wire mesh, which you could use as see how it has still flexibility to it. There's only one coat of that Venetian plaster, so I will come back and do that. And you can also, Amy's got a really cool tool as well. It is a soft trowel that is not in my deck, but it's she uses it for the mesh molds, and that's really awesome too. And that's a fun way to add. So just adding in texture to that leaf. And then I would wait till it gets a little bit firmer and then adding in. So guys, it's so simple. It's really your mixture. It's the type of mixture, and that's it. So if you guys have questions, please leave them in the comments. I enjoyed hanging out with you today, and have a fantastic weekend. Take care.